Good evening, everyone. Welcome. If we could ask everyone who's sitting in the back rows, everyone, if they could please sit in this first area over here on the right, middle, or the side, it would be greatly appreciated. Everyone should please move up. Tonight's very special shir. We have the great honor to hear from Rebbetzin Slovie Jungreis Wolff. The shir is being dedicated L'ilui Nishmat Liel Dina Bat Ephraim. Hashem Hashem Aliyah Bezrat Hashem. We want to thank everyone for joining us in person. It's also being streamed right now online. Anyone's watching right now or is in person right here, they could share the link to anyone who, for whatever reason, couldn't make it in person. The link is, if you want to write it down or text it to people, chazaq.org/live, chazaq.org/live, LIVE. Again, chazaq.org/live, chazaq.org/live. And we want just a few short, quick announcements. We want to thank, obviously, the shul, Rabbi Nasirov, Beit El, for opening its doors always for the community. There's actually a very special event this Sunday night, a drug and addiction awareness event right here. Chazaq is partnering together with Emet and Amudim for a very special program, 8:30 p.m. this Sunday night in this building right here, the Beit El. Everyone is encouraged to attend. And we want just a quick word about the great work of Chazaq. Not only organizes events and shiurim like tonight, but organizes right now 12 Sunday programs, after-school programs for Jewish public school students, including in this building right here, Beit El, on Sundays. As we know, there's thousands of Jewish public school students in our neighborhood, and we should all, if anyone knows of anyone who has a child in public school, should definitely reach out to Chazaq so we can have them get a Jewish education. And we want to thank Rebecca Joseph. I think she deserves a round of applause for her amazing work. And as well as Tammy, for her tremendous work, and that's why we're here tonight. And it's our great honor to call upon Rebecca Joseph.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out tonight. The beauty of being part of Am Yisrael is that we come together in both happiness and more so in tragedy. May tonight serve as a merit for the beautiful neshama of Liel Namdar, Alea Shalom. Our mission tonight is for each and every one of us to make it upon themselves to do a mitzvah in chesed in the name of Liel, a pure neshama that was taken away from us so soon. I hope that tonight will motivate us and ignite something in us to make a change in her zechut. The small positive shifts can make the greatest waves. I would like to thank Chazaq for the amazing organization, for giving us the opportunity to come together, and for the work that they do for Am Yisrael. May we go from strength to strength. Tonight, we have the privilege to hear from the inspirational author, lecturer, and role model, Rebbetzin Slovie Jungreis Wolff, who can offer all of us the comfort and strength. Please help me welcome Rebbetzin Slovie Jungreis Wolff.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'd also like to welcome those who are online. This is truly a very difficult talk for me to give. And when Robbie called me from Chazaq, and I'd like to thank Chazaq for this opportunity, it took me a moment, and I gave a sigh, because really, ma nomer, ma nedaber. What can we say? My daughter-in-law from Yerushalayim called me last week after this terrible tragedy. And she said to me, Mommy, what do we do? What do we do, Mommy? We're going through so much as a dar. And everyone is so filled with pain and sorrow, and now this, and there's so much, Meron and COVID, and I mean, do we have to list all the tragedies? What do we do, Mommy? And then we had a conversation. I received the call to speak here tonight, and I relayed that to my daughter-in-law, Yael, and she said to me, Mommy, why don't you just tell the women about our conversation? because it gave me so much comfort to know that you can find chizuk and solace and nechama from the Torah. If there's one thing that I've learned in my life growing up in the house of my parents, and especially from my mother, it is hafochba dekulaba. My mother would always teach that to me. Turn the pages, everything's in the Torah. We can't go wrong if we go back to the Torah. We're not the first to go through pain, to go through anguish and suffering and heartbreak. But the question is really for us, how do we respond? And as my daughter-in-law said to me, Mommy, what now? What do you do now? So tonight, I ask you to journey with me. Journey with me back into the life of Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, who went through tremendous pain and anguish and suffering and heartbreak. Yaakov Avinu, who was told that his son Yosef was devoured by a wild beast, who was handed the coat, the kisonis possum of his son, and cried when he saw, and said that he refuses to be comforted. Till the grave, Yaakov Avinu said, till the grave, this sorrow and this pain is going to be carried in my heart. Fast forward, Yaakov Avinu hears that this boy, his beloved son Yosef, whom he thought was dead, is now alive. Yaakov Avinu travels down to Mitzrayim. And the Torah describes that encounter of all encounters for the very first time. And I want to go back into the pasuk so that each of us understand and feel exactly what Yaakov Avinu felt. Vayeser Yosef merkavto, vayal likras Yisrael aviv goshna, vayarila vayipol al tzavara, vayevch al tzavarav od. And Yosef, he comes, he sees his father from far in Goshen, comes up. He sees his father after not seeing him, after all this time, after all this heartbreak, after being thrown into prison, after going through all his nisyonos in Mitzrayim, after being the only Jew in Mitzrayim. And he falls upon his father's neck, and Yosef weeps, and he weeps, and he weeps. And Yaakov Avinu, what does he do? 6 words. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. That's it. How is it possible? What happened to all the emotion? What happened to all the pain? What happened to all the heartbreak? What happened to all the trauma? What is the Torah trying to teach us? In that moment of challenge, what did Yaakov Avinu think? And what is the legacy that he gave us until today? We, his daughters, Beit Yaakov. That's what we are. We're his daughters. What is it that Yaakov Avinu wanted to teach us, to give us? What's his legacy? What's his gift? What was he thinking? The moment that he saw his son Yosef, he saw that Yosef was royalty, second to the king in Mitzrayim. He saw that Yosef was a tzaddik, the only one in the Torah called it tzaddik. Yosef had tzaddik because he remained loyal and faithful to all the teachings of his father, of his mother. That's Yosef. And in that very moment, Yaakov Avinu felt pain and joy, sorrow, grief, and nachat all at the same time. And all the emotions just collided. He was so filled with so much inside of him. Do you know what he saw at that moment? He saw din. He saw judgment. He saw hardship. He saw pain. And he saw rachamim. He saw compassion. He saw goodness. He saw chesed. And at that moment, instead of just falling into all of that emotion and trauma, he took all of that feeling that was inside of him and he called out, Shema Yisrael, Hashem, chesed, compassion, goodness, Elokeinu, din, hardship, pain, heartbreak. Hashem echad. But it's all one. It all comes from one source. Hashem rachamim, compassion. That means that sometimes I don't see the plan and I don't understand what's happening and my heart is full and my soul is breaking. But at the very same time, I say, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. I accept upon myself all Malchut Shemayim. The legacy, the responsibility of being a Jew, of living and dying with Emunah Shalema, with complete faith in Hashem, in my God, in my Torah, in my people. That's what it means to be a Jew. To live with the faith of knowing Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And to know that with all my life, with all my heart, with all my soul. So what Yaakov Avinu is teaching us at that moment is, number one, when you have emotion, do you know what you do, my dear women? When you have tears, when your heart is breaking, don't just leave it at tears. Don't just leave it at being brokenhearted and sobbing and weeping on your pillow. Do you know what we do? Nashim tzidkanios, righteous women who brought us out of Mitzrayim and who will bring us out of this gullus, this long and dark gullus into Geula. We daven. We open up our Tehillim and we use our tears to break through the barriers of Shemayim. How do you know that you've had a good workout when you go to the gym? You sweat. Rav Hirsch teaches us that you know when you cry that you've given your neshama, your soul, the greatest workout possible. Your tears are the sweat of your neshama, of your soul. Now imagine taking that sweat and opening up a Tehillim or crying out and saying, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, Hashem. There are times of joy, Hashem. There are times of sorrow. But I know with Emunah Shalema, just as Yaakov Avinu knew, that it all comes from Hashem Echad. And I have that faith and I have that Emunah. This has been the mission statement of Am Yisrael for thousands and thousands of years. This is who we are. This is our oxygen. My full name is Slava Chana. I was named for my Babi, the Rebbetzin Slovie Jungreis. She was the Rebbetzin of a city called Nadedvar in Hungary. And eyewitnesses have told us that in her very last moments in this world, She was taken away to the gas chambers of Auschwitz. In her arms, she was holding her grandchildren. But the last words that she ever uttered were the words that Yaakov Avinu uttered. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, Hashem. No matter what I go through, I have the Emunah and I believe. Everyone listening here tonight, everyone sitting in this room, or everyone watching at home, must know that the only way that you are here and I am here is because we've had bubbies and zaydis, grandparents, whether it be in Bavel, in Babylonia, in Rome, during the Crusades, in Morocco, in Syria, in Egypt, in Hungary, in Russia, in slave labor camps in Siberia, doesn't matter where. But our bubbies and zaydis who came before us did not give up their faith and their emunah. That's the only way that we are here today. Because we are the daughters of Yaakov Avinu, who never gave up. And they understood this. There will be pain and there will be hardship, and we don't always understand. But you know what we say? We say the Shema because we believe. We have that emunah shlema. And on a personal note, I must share with you that in the very last months of my mother's life, over and over, my mother would say to me and to my siblings, Kindlach, children, I know what I see. The world is on fire and we are sleeping. This was 5 years ago, before the anti-Semitism that took over our college campuses in our world, before the pandemic, before all the chaos. And I didn't understand. And over again, my mother said to me, Kindlach, I know what I see. The world is on fire and we are sleeping. Get the Jewish people to say Shema. And I didn't understand. Get the Jewish people to say Shema? How? Why? And then last week, after this tragedy, I heard something incredible. That this beautiful neshama, Liel, this young, sweet neshama who touched so many lives in her life and after her neshama left this world. One of her final texts was to her friends to say, remind me to say the Shema. Is that not a message for each and every one of us? So I ask that all of us take upon ourselves, in the zechut of this neshama who was tragically taken, in the zechut of all of us trying so hard to think, how do we get through the pain and how do we get through the sorrow, to take upon ourselves every morning and every night, Shema. And if we already say the Shema, to take a moment and say, before we say the Shema, in quiet, Hashem, I take upon myself now, Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shemayim, with Emunah Shalema, with complete faith. I believe Hashem. And I take upon myself the responsibility to be a Jew. Just this morning, when I was davening, these words jumped out at me. Ashreinu ma tov chalkeinu uma na'im gorelenu uma yafa yerushasenu. Ashreinu, we are so blessed. We are so lucky. We're so happy. We're so fortunate. Why? You and I. I'm talking about us. Ma tov chalkeinu, ma nam gorelenu, because you and I, we have an incredible legacy, an incredible gift, an incredible Yerusha, an incredible inheritance. And do you know what it is? Ashreinu shanachnu mashkimim uma'arivim erev avoker. We are so fortunate. We're so blessed because erev avoker, in the nighttime, and in the boker in the morning, omrim pamayim b'chol yom, we say 2 times a day, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Erev avoker, do you know what that means? Erev is not just the evening. Erev is the Erev of our life, when things seem very dark and difficult. And boker is the morning, when the sun is shining, and you feel that everything's going your way. Do we say the Shema only in the boker? Do we say the Shema and accept our Emunah Shlema only when we feel that things are going our way? Yaakov Avinu taught us, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, Erev Vavoker, in the nighttime and in the daytime. Ashreinu matov chalkeinu. This is our legacy and our Yerusha. This is your koach, this is my koach, this is the koach of Am Yisrael. But I want to ask you, my dear women, from where did Yaakov Avinu get this koach? Where did he get this energy from? Where did he get this understanding from? Where did he get this chazaq, this strength from? Because if we can understand that, then we can understand for ourselves how to tap in to our spiritual DNA, to the koach that each and every one of us has, but we don't even realize that we have, how to recharge our spiritual batteries. So before Yaakov Avinu was coming down to Mitzrayim, he had a vision. Vayomer Elokim liYisrael. Hashem spoke to Yisrael, and who is Yisrael if not Yaakov Avinu, in his highest state? B'mareh halayla, in a vision of the night. Vayomer, and Hashem said, Yaakov, Yaakov. Hashem called out to Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov, Yaakov, because Hashem loved him so much that Hashem used his name. It's lashon chiba, language of love, when you use somebody's name. Vayomer hinein, and he said, here I am, Hashem, ready to serve. Vayomer, and Hashem said, Anochi hakel Elokei avicha, I'm Hashem, the God of your fathers. Al tira, Yaakov, don't be afraid. Mirda Mitzrayim, from going down to Mitzrayim. Ki l'gai gadol simcha sham. I'm going to make you into an incredibly huge nation. Anochi ered imcha Mitzrayim. I'm going to go down with you into Mitzrayim. V'anochi alcha gamalo. And also, I'm going to come up with you. My friends, why was Yaakov Avinu frightened? And how did Hashem give him nechama and solace? If we can understand that, then any time that we feel frightened, we can tap into these words, because Chumash is alive, Torah is alive. It's not just Yaakov Avinu, it's you, it's me, it's all of us. This is our story. Why was he frightened? Yaakov Avinu knew at that moment that he was going down into Galus. And when you go down into Galus, it's so frightening. What's going to be with me, Hashem? What's going to be with my children? How are we ever going to get out of this hole, this pit, this choshech, this darkness, this pain, this suffering, the hardship? Hashem, what's going to be? What's going to be? On the word Yisrael are 7 little crowns. And the Baal Turim tells us something that we really have to think about. He goes through 7 hardships that Yaakov Avinu went through. The 7 hardships that he went through. The hatred of Esav, Lavan's trickery, the battle of the angel of Esav, the tsar of Dinah, the loss of Yosef, the taking of Shimon in Mitzrayim, the separation of Binyamin, Sheva yipol tzaddik. 7 times a tzaddik falls. But what? V'kom, and he gets up. Yaakov Avinu actually took all of these different hardships, and you know what he did? He made crowns out of them. From the darkness comes the light. That's what we have to do when we find ourselves in a place of hardship. From the darkness comes the light. And as I was studying this and absorbing this, because Hashem said to Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov, my son, my child, Yaakov Avinu, understand that as hard and difficult as all these hardships were, you got through them. You got up. And just as you went through all those hardships and all those heartbreaking times, but you made it. I'm with you. And you're going to make this too. So as I'm studying this, a pasuk comes to me. And it's a pasuk from Micha, and it's so beautiful. I want us to think about this as we think about Liel, and we think about all the pain that Am Yisrael is going through, both as a nation and personally. Al tismechi ayvai li. Don't be happy, my enemies, when you see everything that we are going through. Ki nafalti, because I have fallen. Kamti, I'm going to get up. I promise you, I will not stay on my knees. Am Yisrael is going to get up. We are going to get up. Ki eshev b'choshech, because when I sit in darkness, Hashem orli, Hashem is my light. Yaakov Avinu has a mar'eh, he has a vision in the night, and he's trembling, he's terrified. Hashem says, just as all those hardships were resolved, I want you to take this message with you forever and ever. And the message is this, that Yaakov Avinu got from Hashem. Al tira, don't be afraid when you go down to Mitzrayim. Anochi ereid imcha Mitzrayim. This is a promise, not just to Yaakov. It's a promise to you. It's a promise to me. It's a promise to all of us. Everyone has their own personal Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim comes from the word tsar. I'm choking, Hashem. I'm choking. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And Hashem says, don't be afraid, because I'm going to go down with you. Imo anochi batzara. Your heart is breaking. Hashem's heart is breaking too. Hashem sees every tear. Hashem feels every pain. It hurts Hashem too. Galus hurts. Death hurts. Grieving hurts. A lack of shalom bayis hurts. Any pain that we experience hurts. And it hurts HaKadosh Baruch Hu too. But we have to know, Imo anochi batzara. The only way that you and I are here tonight is through nisim and miracles. Look at me. I shouldn't be here. My parents, my grandparents went through churban, destruction. How many did we lose in my mishpacha, my family? Aunts and uncles and grandparents and great-grandparents and cousins. An entire dar. And if you would ask at that time, who will be in 2021 standing? Will it be Hitler Yamach Shemo and all the Nazis? Or will it be the Jews, their children and grandchildren? Who will live and who will die? Would we ever have imagined that Am Yisrael would be flourishing the way that we are today? Would we ever imagine that we would stand in Yerushalayim at the Kotel? It's miracles. Why? Because Hashem promises, I'm going down with you. But just as I'm going down with you, my beautiful kinderlach, my children, I'm going up with you too. And that's the first message. There's one more message I want us to go home with tonight. Before Yaakov Avinu leaves this world, he gathers his children around because he knew that he was dying and soon his neshama was leaving. Vayikra Yaakov el banav, and Yaakov called to his children. And understand when the Torah says his children, that's you, that's me. Vayomer, and he said, Hey Asfu, come together. Va'agida lachem es asher yikra eschem ba'acharis hayamim. I'm going to tell you about the days of Mashiach. I'm going to tell you when Mashiach is going to come. Kinderlach, children, listen to me. Before I leave this world, I want to tell you you're going to go through terrible galus, terrible darkness, terrible choshech. And even though you're going to wait and wait and wait, and you'll think he's delayed, you're going to wait and he's going to come. And you're going to see Mashiach in Achras Hayamim. But at that moment, the Shekhinah left. And Yaakov Avinu lost the ability to relate to his children and to us the date and time and year that Mashiach would come. So what did Yaakov Avinu do? And why did that happen? He gave us a final message. Us, you and I. He kabtzu, gather together, come together, join together. How do you call dough in challah but sake? The same as hikabtzu, the same letters. When you make your challah and you bring it together, you know what you're really doing. You're creating zuchus for Am Yisrael. Come together the way that you make your challah dough come together. Because after it comes together, it rises. Nashim tzidkanios, this is a message for us. Hikabtzu, come together. Don't look at each other's differences. Enough with all the fighting and arguments and machlokas. Sometimes you walk around, sometimes I'll be in a supermarket and you just hear conversations coming out of phones. He said that, she said that, the teacher did this. And what's happening above us? The sinas chinim, for what? For what? What are we accomplishing? What are we doing? There's so many in this world who hate us. And we should hate each other. What does every parent want? You sit down to your Shabbos table, what do you want? You go on a vacation, you're driving in a car, what do you want? Just get along. Just get along. The minute the kids start fighting in the back seat, everything goes south. You can have the most beautiful Shabbos table with the greatest desserts, the most incredible charcuterie boards, sushi, cowboy sticks, the whole thing, cigars. Every community has their thing. But if you're fighting at the table, nobody wants to be there. We want to invite HaKadosh Baruch Hu to our table. So Yaakov Avinu is telling us, this is how you're going to do it. Hikabtzu, come together. Stop fighting. Mach shalom, make shalom. Tonight you go home. Call somebody that you know is hurting. Do it for Am Yisrael. Do it for Liel. Do it for Geula. Vishimu, and hear each other. Shimu b'nei Yaakov. Hear each other, my children. Give each other a voice. Don't knock each other down. Vishimu el Yisrael avichem. And Yaakov Avinu says, Shimu el Yisrael avichem. He's talking to me. He's talking to you. Hear me. right now, because I'm talking to you. So what is it that we need to do? Not long ago, I was invited to speak in a community. And after my talk, there were 10 women who asked if we could have a conversation. We sat around a table, and it was a great night, Baruch Hashem. And at the close of that conversation, one woman raised her hand and she said, "Do you mind if I ask you just one more question?" "Of course," I said. She told me, and she told all of us, that she has a child, a little girl, with special needs. And every single night, at 1 o'clock in the morning, at 2 o'clock in the morning, at 3 o'clock in the morning, at 4 o'clock in the morning, at 5 o'clock in the morning, her little girl can't stop crying. She puts her back into her little bed, and then she cries again, and again, and again. "What do you say?" she said to me. "What can you tell me about this little girl of mine who's always in pain, and her mommy who's always in pain? What can I say?" And then I look around the table, and do you know what I see? I see something that was the most beautiful sight. Every single woman sitting at that table is crying tears. When Am Yisrael was finally taken out of Mitzrayim, the pasuk says, "V'gam ani shamati es na'akas b'nei Yisrael," and I also heard the cries of Am Yisrael. What do you mean also? HaKadosh Baruch Hu said that the moment that I saw that each of you were crying for each other, then I could hear your cries, and I can cry for you too. The moment that each of you and each of us can daven for each other and feel each other's pain as if it's my pain and it's not your pain. The moment that those barriers and separations come down and you can sit at a table and every woman is crying for this woman, that's a moment of Geula. V'gam ani shamati. So Yaakov Avinu is saying, listen to me. Why did Hashem cover the date and not allow Yaakov Avinu to tell us when Mashiach is coming? Because it's not about the date, and it's not about the deadline, and it's not about the character of the day or the calendar. Do you know what it's about? Hashem wants us to find nechama from each other. If you and I can leave tonight and cry for each other, if you and I can feel each other's pain, if you can take one person's name who needs a shidduch, who needs shalom bayis, who's waiting for a baby to hold in their arms, who needs a refuah shalema, who's struggling with parnasa, is there not enough pain in this world? If we can feel it, that's the key to Geula. And that's what Yaakov Avinu wants us to know. So I close with this, my dear, dear friends. We began tonight with speaking about the power of Shema. On the day that my mother arrived to Bergen-Belsen, she was so frightened, terrified, covered with lice, her head shaven. What will be? Starving? Will we ever get out of this Gehenna? Freezing. And she was just a little girl. She put her hand in her pocket and she felt a paper. She took out the paper, and what did she find? My Zaidi, my mother's Tati, had put in my mother's pocket the page from the Siddur that said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Never forget it, because that's the key to our Emunah. Erev v'voker, Ashreinu, Ma tov chalkeinu. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining us. And tonight should not be just coming to this amazing shiur, which is a tremendous merit, but we should all have all the mitzvot that we're going to do, brachot, adlakat nerot, whatever it is, mitzvot that we're going to do. We should all take upon, as Rebecca said, an extra mitzvah we're going to do and have in mind. The name, Liel Dina Bat Ephraim, Liel Dina Bat Ephraim. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight.